Give me 1 second.
Well, welcome and welcome this morning to the Mary Red Nelson Panther Nation Alumni Show. And I'd like to welcome also the people watching on Facebook as well as on my other YouTube channel, the Slim Nation One on One Experience. But right now we are here on our alumni channel and the Hampton Roads alumni. And we have a alum here. Her name is Coach Barvenia Wooten. And I've had the opportunity to talk to her before, and we talked about quite a few things, and we're going to do that again today. First of all, welcome, Barbinia. How are you
Thank
today?
you.
Thanks for agreeing to come on today.
Um, do, Thank you so much. I'm doing great. It's Grand
Yeah,
Rising for me. Another beautiful day.
another beautiful day, Grand Rising, and what an amazing lady here and alum, and you can expect nothing more to that when you come out of that the Virginia Union University. But it kind of all started back in Cincinnati, Ohio. Before she even got to Union. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and about her professional basketball team that she coaches. And she's also a part of the league, a vice president in the league. So we're going to talk about that too. But before we get started on that, I always wanted to ask you this question, and you've probably been asked this before. Over the years, it's always been, like it's lady coaches of basketball and it's men coaches of basketball. And I'm sure somewhere in these United States of America, it's quite a few women that coaches the boys or men, but probably not as many. How do you feel about that? You know, as far as it being just as equal as schools when they go out looking for coaches, are they really looking at the women too when they're thinking about the boys or men's basketball?
That's a very good question, Slim. I've always had that same thought process. Well, like when I see a lot of the men coaching women's basketball, and no shade on them. However, I always ask the question like, why isn't that parity across the board when it comes to women having the opportunity to coach boys? Now, I don't know if it's a preference, with women wanting to stay with women and not really going to coach men's basketball teams because there are different dynamics when you talk about boys and girls or males and females. So I too have often asked that question, and I'm going to defer to the fact that because there's not been a lot of women coaches, because the woman plays different roles in her life than men do. And so with that being said, I feel like in most cases, because men have over the years pretty much dominated women's sports in general. Doesn't matter if it's basketball, softball, volleyball, etc. And then over time, I saw women like myself really getting involved in coaching sports.
Yeah, and it probably will evolve as time goes on because you're seeing it happening slowly in other sports as a woman umpire in the baseball league and for football, So
Right, right.
and I thought, and it's very capable women out there of coaching the boys, and I just never, you know, uh, I know traditionally that's how it was, and It was the makeup of the family and all that things, and a
That's
lot of
correct.
things had to open up
Yes.
for
Yeah,
women.
a lot of
You know, I
factors.
was even surprised that it wasn't until the late '60s or '70s before women could have credit cards, could have their own credit or buy a home. So things come slowly, but I hope to see that down the road because it is some very capable women coaches out there that uh, should be even considered. I just wondered when schools are looking at that list, they have a list
Right.
of
Like
coaches.
short
Are
list. The short
women on that
right.
list?
Right. Right.
Are they
Right.
even considered? Because that's where the beginning. That's where it starts. But anyway, I was just curious about that and wanted to get your take on that. But I
Yeah.
wanted to go. When you started out in basketball, reading your book. Uh, it talks about those early years and you started out in sports kind of early. I think it was volleyball and track, was it?
That's
Was
correct.
it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and volleyball was a good segue to go into basketball because you had a lot of jumping in, and if you were tall, that was an advantage there. And something I didn't know until I read the book again, how fast you were. So I guess that's a plus too in getting up and down the court because that makes a difference too, on the fast break. But so you started out in those sports and encouraged by your father and you played a lot with the
Not by
guys.
my
So,
father. No. My
oh,
father
okay,
had passed on. Yeah, not by my
okay,
father. Yeah,
okay. I'm sorry.
by my PE teacher at
Okay,
the elementary school. Yes.
okay, yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I misspoke on that, but.
That's okay.
Anyway, you developed in those other sports, and what was that transition to? When did that transition to basketball start? Was it immediate, or during the time you were still doing the volleyball and the track? Because that's a lot. We had guys that were season guys, and they went from one season to the next. The whole year they were playing something. Was that the way it was with you, volleyball? Track
Well,
and then
it's
basketball or
interesting.
did
Yeah, but it's
what?
interesting when I really step back and reflect on my life. I jokingly say, but I believe it's true. I was just born to play sports, right? Some people come into that realization early on and just buy into it and lock in. And so when I got to that elementary school and during those days, PE was like the dream of the day. We couldn't wait to get outside and play on the playground, and by being able to go out there and play on the playground, and then you leave from school, you go home, you play outside. We didn't have technology to distract us. We didn't have TVs for the most part, other than your basic channels. So staying and playing outside was our world. And with that being said, I just enjoy competing with the boys. I enjoy, getting outside, running and playing. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that in elementary schools in Cincinnati, Ohio, that they had sports, organized sports for girls. So we actually had a volleyball team and a track team in elementary. And every summer, every spring, we would have our state playoffs. And I love the fact that we would have the state playoffs, the track and field, and we would go to those events. And that's where I lived. I enjoyed it. And so being able to, learn from volleyball and then running track and then coming outside and just repeating, those same type of, skills that I learned. By the time I got to high school, that was the first year that they really started girls basketball. Because even in middle school, I still only played the volleyball and the track and ran the track because those were the only organized sports that they had for girls. And I remember, and it's in my book, I remember seeing a sign posted in my high school in Cincinnati, Ohio, at Hughes, and it says they had a girls basketball tryout. And my one of my good girlfriends and I that played both of those sports, we was like, let's just go out for the basketball team because we didn't want to wait around for softball. Now I also played softball as well. Softball was pretty much my number one sport, and we went out for the basketball team and lo and behold, of course, like you said, tall people, I was very athletic. I got picked up right away. And the rest is history.
Yes, indeed. And a lot of players, you hear about their stories. that come from humble beginnings. Hold on just 1 minute.
Okay.
Losing my power here. Let me just. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry for that. We had that
Okay.
little power outage there. But anyway, I was saying that a lot of players come from humble beginnings. And at some point while they're playing, they realize that this might be a ticket for me to, excuse me, to go to college or further
Correct.
my education. But you also excelled in the classroom. It wasn't all dependent on your sports abilities. You also
Absolutely.
wanted to make sure that you excelled there as well because it was a dual purpose of you playing and getting in college to get that education.
I always enjoyed reading. That was something that I enjoyed doing, and even when I was in elementary school, I was sharing this story with a good friend of mine, and I said I'm dating myself because we called it multiplications, the timetable. You remember that, Slim? And
Yes,
we
indeed.
had to recite all of those from our ones all the way up to our 12s. And I took pride in that. I took some pride in competing against the boys. And I would go home and I would practice my timetable. So when I came to school, because we would be rewarded for every um, number that you were able to remember or recite, you got moved up a desk. So my goal was to get to the front of the class by, reciting all my timetables and basically getting, that gold star that they gave you put up on the board. And that was motivation and inspiration for me. And as I moved on through middle school, it was the same process. I always wanted to, do great things with my life. My mom was very instrumental in my life because she, had an opportunity to go to college. She was a minister. She was out there in the community. And I saw her doing a lot of great things. And I just wanted to also, make my mom happy. I wanted to make my mom proud of me in terms of what I did. And so going on to high school, I was ready. I was ready. Just being on the academic honor roll was always a joy for me because I had been, exposed to seeing a lot of our Black athletes going to those PWIs at that time and not getting a quality education. And
Right.
I did not want to be one of those. And I did not want to be called, they call you a jock. You could do everything athletically, but you couldn't do it academically. So I took pride in my academics. And I knew by talking to some of the seniors in high school and having access to some of the college students who had come home from the summer, they always encouraged me, make sure you get in the books because, you can only go up so far with your athletics. You know, you can get hurt, you can get injured, but if you got your degree, and remember we said once you get your education, that's something that people can't take away from you. So I bought into that mindset. And as a result,
Yes,
I wanted to be the best in what I did, academically and athletically. So when I got the
yes,
opportunity to get a scholarship to college, I did not want it to just be about sports.
yes, indeed, and you were best in the state at both for sure. And I wanted to bring that point up to because it's so important, and we've seen horror stories. You can go back to Dexter Manley, who went through college and played
Yes,
for Washington. Uh,
yes,
the former Redskins, now Commanders, but went to Washington, and it was kind of hard to believe that he was in college and couldn't read. Now,
I know.
when people say you can't read, it's all about. I think he was at the point where his comprehension
It was
wasn't there. I don't
yes,
think he could not totally read, but
right.
I think you have
Comprehension.
to be able to comprehend what you're reading, and he probably read differently than everybody else. But it didn't matter because they just you know swept them through the classes. It was all about football, and we can't have that these days because of injuries and because things can happen. And there is life after your sports career, so it's just
Absolutely.
so important. You know,
Yes,
so
it
I wanted
is.
to bring that point up too because you were very good in the classroom, and that's so important. You know, and
Yes,
as we talk about your championship team and move to Union, when you were on the basketball team, the championship team there, many of you players, fellow players on the team were scholars, and
yes.
sometimes I wonder how you all did it. Especially you, Fabina, uh, thinking about all the things you did, being homecoming queen, uh,
Pledging
and all the other
Delta,
things.
Theta.
Yeah, and pledging Delta, on campus, and I know how the basketball schedule is. Like I told you, I played that freshman team before they had the girls' um, teams there at Union when I was there in the '70s. So they had a freshman team, and we had to practice through the Thanksgiving holidays. So
Correct.
the practices just playing any of the sports there was enough to keep you busy, and then all these other things, and then the classrooms. You had to keep
Correct.
up with the classrooms. And I think that was an advantage too, being at a small HBCU university.
Yes.
You have that
Yes.
connection.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that experience because about one of your first times going away from Cincinnati, going away from your hometown. Really, I mean, you traveled throughout the state playing basketball for certain things, but leaving the state and coming to Virginia, I believe that probably was your first time coming to Virginia, and then coming to the little old campus of Virginia Union University. What was that experience like when you first got there? Because was it what you expected as far as campus wise, or how was that experience?
Well, being, the the player, Ohio State Player of the Year, Pro Am Ohio State Player of the Year. And during that time, we didn't have a lot of technology. So schools didn't know a lot about you unless your high school coach sent them information. And because I met one of my best mentors, Dr. Calvert Smith over at the University of Cincinnati, I remember him calling me. And at that time, they had been recruiting me at the University of Cincinnati, but I didn't want to stay home. I didn't. I wanted to go out and explore and see the world. And so when he called me, I didn't return his phone call at first, and then finally I returned his call. And when I returned his call, I didn't realize that he was a black man. I actually thought he was white. And fast forward, found out that he was the dean of the Black Studies department at the University of Cincinnati. So he brought me over. He sat down. He talked to me about these about the HBCUs, and the only ones that I knew about was Central State and Kentucky State. Those were the two within my area. And so once
Hmm.
he exposed me to all of those HBCUs, I was like, wow, my the world just opened up. And my friend, one of the boys basketball players at Hughes High School, was actually recruited to Virginia Union. And he was the one that told my high school basketball coach about me. And so that information got passed on to the late Tricky Tom Harris. that
Mm.
came up to Cincinnati during our state championship run. And I remember, him talking to me about me coming down there to visit Virginia Union. And I was excited. I was like, wow, what is the Virginia Union and where are they located? And of course, you said down in Virginia. And I wasn't afraid. There was no fear of me leaving Cincinnati, no matter how many miles I was going to go away. And so he flew my homegirl, Lisa Smith at that time, and I down there to Virginia Union. And you're right. When I got to the campus, I was like, whoa, first of all, coming off of 95 onto passing Jackson Ward and coming through that area, I was like, where's the school located? Is this school in the, what we call in the ghettos and the Black community? And so we got to
Like most
Union.
HBCUs are.
I did not know that at that time, right? And so when I got to the campus, I was like, I told my homegirl at the time, I said, oh, I guess I won't be coming back here because my high school, in my opinion, the gym and the facilities that we had looked better. And of course, I had wanted to go to the PWIs. I had some offers there. But long story short, I remember before I left Virginia Union, I met a football player, and I talk about him in my book, Larry Behringer. And then you know
Mhm.
how they bring the football players back early, and got a chance to talk to him. So he said, let me tell you, this is how you make up your mind. He said, if you want to come to HBCU and be with your people, come here. But if you don't, go to the PWIs. And at that time, a little backdrop story, I kind of called myself this Black militant little girl, wanted to come out and save the world, do great things for my own, for my community. And so when he said that to me, I was like, okay, well, maybe I should. And then the last words he left with me, because I had heard it before: do you want to be a big fish in a small pond? I mean, a big fish in a small pond, right? Or a small fish in a big pond. Now, mind you, like you said, academically and athletically, I feel very confident in my ability to go to play at the PWIs, but I wanted to be amongst my own. And so, fast forward, flew back home. My homegirl and I, she says, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I'm not sure. And unbeknownst to me, he had already been in my mom's ear. And so it was like, okay, let me go last minute. I made the decision to come to Virginia Union, and a decision that I'll never regret.
And how fortunate we were at Union to have you there. You even after you had a great basketball career there, you end up coaching. Now, which came first? Were you coaching at Florida State in Jacksonville, Florida State College in Jacksonville, or at
No,
Union?
my my first coaching job was up in Maryland at Prince George's
Oh,
Community
okay.
College. I coached up there for 10 years. And my first year as a coach, I thought I was not going to be able to do that because of the skill set, the mindset of those young girls. And I was like, well, y'all not ready for Coach Wooten, because when I step on the basketball court, it's on. But fast forward, I hung in there, was very successful, won a couple of conference titles, took my team over that 10-year span twice to the national tournament. And I was successful in getting every year 2 to 3 of my junior college players recruited. Matter of fact, I sent 2 of them to Virginia Union as well. And so I left there. I was there from 1999 to 2010, and then Virginia Union. Now, I had been in conversation with Union probably over a good, 12, 14 years about coming back home to coach. And then finally it happened. So I came back in 2010, coached at Union, was very successful, got coach of the year, won the Northern Division, and had brought my daughter in to help me, Vicky Collier. It's so interesting because to have the opportunity to coach my daughter at the collegiate level, in addition to the fact that I coached the AAU, and then her being all CIAA, me being all CIAA, that's just that legacy, right? And then
Right,
I
right.
end up leaving Virginia Union. And let me also add, I was one of the first women's basketball coaches to raise our GPA. So my average GPA for my women at Virginia Union was at least a 3.2, and
And
that
it
was
still
I
holds up
was
today. It's
and it's
still
still holding up today. Absolutely.
okay.
Because academics, I mean, think about it. We didn't have the WNBA then. We didn't have the ABL there at that time.
Right.
So what was next for women to be able to play other than to go overseas? So I always knew, get your degree in something else other than sports at that time.
Yeah. So, and when you were at Union, and when you finally got to Union, you were coaching there, and was was that during a time? Was it? You just mentioned this kind of, but when you were at Union, there still hadn't been developed a W in NBA. Am I correct?
No, you're correct. You're correct. No, it
You
didn't
just
get
said you
started.
just said that pretty much. That's why you raised the GPA, so the women would be prepared to do other
Well,
things other than that.
well, not only that, remember what I said, I was committed to academics. It's no
Right.
question. Even if it, that was that opportunity, I wanted my women to be able to get their degree. Think about it, Slim. If you get recruited to a college, and let's just take the number one right now, and it's costing you, they pay you really $50,000 a year, right? Because that's what the tuition is costing. And I'm not including the other perks and benefits that you get with that. So let's throw another 10. That's $60,000 for you to earn over less than 7, 8 months. And you multiply that time 4 years, that's well under $300,000. And you don't walk away with anything tangible, that's totally unacceptable. And so I wanted to make sure my women, took advantage of the scholarship that they were being offered. So when they left the university, then their lives will be that much better. They would be able to live a quality life, right? They would be able to go out there and command those jobs that paid them, at that time, the 50s, the 70, $80,000, so they could have a quality of life. Because other than that, to me, it was futile. You come in here for 4 years, you don't leave with a degree. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of your time, the university's time, and your family time.
And
So
money.
Muhammad Ali said, "Don't count the minutes, make the minutes count."
Yes. Yes, indeed. And before we move on to your professional career, I wanted to let me put this picture up. Uh, so it sort of just describes, later on, where you were recognized when you were there, learning, I mean, playing, and
Right.
recognized for your academic uh, achievements. But years later, the whole team was recognized for their championships and national championships. So talk a little bit about that and how that was. And I believe some of the players you probably saw for the first time in years when you came together for
Well,
that.
Well, let me just say that again, just my joy for life. I've always been a very energetic person. I've always been thankful and grateful, for my life and my path. And when I got to Virginia Union, it was nothing like, being there home. I felt home. There was a sense of purpose. I was able to be affirmed in my black skin. I didn't have to worry about trying to assimilate with another culture. I was able to be able to do me. And we were winning. The football teams were winning. The men's basketball team were winning. We started to win it, and that was this energy on that campus, that synergy that allowed me to flourish, right? And so going to class, finishing with a GPA my freshman year of a 3.8, staying committed to the basketball. Like life was great for me. I tell my children, and I jokingly say, if I could have stayed and played another 4 years of sports, which would have been in volleyball, and played another 4 years of softball, they might not have been born. But nevertheless, it was a great time, being an athlete at Virginia Union. And then when I mentioned about the late Tricky Tom, he had a vision, right? This man was committed to growing, black athletes, for helping us to be better people and being leaders down the road. So I bought into his vision. And over time, he started to recruit young ladies that I enjoy playing with. Paris McWhirter, Maria Nicholson, Vita Williams, Eunice Dickerson, Ren Thomas. I can go on about some of the great players that I played with at Virginia Union, and we just took it on. That winning spirit was there, and every day we came out to compete. I tell my team today, my professional team, I was like, some of you all couldn't hang with us when we were playing in college because of the mental toughness and the mindset. And so, like you said, I just want to say I am now an 8-time Hall of Famer, right? So, in addition to being inducted into Virginia Union's University Hall of Fame 6 years after I graduated, and then coming back and my team being inducted into Virginia Union's Hall of Fame, and then somewhere in between getting inducted into the CIAA Basketball Hall of Fame as an individual, and then coming back years later and my whole national women's basketball team being inducted into the CIAA Hall of Fame. So, the late Tricky Tom Harris, all kudos to him because he knew what he was doing. He recruited those women, majority of them, in addition to the late Lewis Hearn as well. Because Lewis Hearn came right behind, took over our team my senior year, at the passing of Tricky Tom Harris my junior year. He took over the program and the program flourished for the next couple of years. And right now, we still are the only women's basketball team that won a national in Virginia Union, and I'm hoping that will change before my life expires. I'm hoping that we'll bring back a national championship at Virginia Union.
Yeah, and that kind of excellence, that kind of winning attitude, attracts, it helps for recruitment. I mean, that's how you get the Charles Oakleys and the Ben Wallaces to come to little old Virginia Union
Yes.
because of the winning. And I always say, if you're good enough, the scouts will find you, no matter where you are.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and so
Absolutely.
they
And
you might
and
think they
and
only
Slim,
spend their time at the big colleges, but they know where the talent is, and then they will go and find it. And those
they
two
know we're
guys, as well
athletes.
as others. Go ahead.
They know we're athletes, bar none. No, and think
Right,
about Slim. Even in your time, I mean, we're not that much, difference in age, but we didn't have anywhere to really go, right? Think about
right.
back in the '60s and the '70s. We went to the HBCUs because there is where we were affirmed in our skin. We were able to be ourselves. Just think about that. We didn't have
Right.
to assimilate, right? We were not taken advantage of. I would always say, prostituted of our skills, right? Because they
Right.
passed, like you said, like Dexter Manley, an example. They passed them right along. Not a quality of education, could care less about whether or not they got the degree, but at those HBCUs that were built in those, like you said, in those Black communities, it was a place where we were being, there was a sense of pride. Like we enjoyed being around each other, that camaraderie. It was so important. And nobody can take that away from us. Even today, when you go back for homecoming, it's the
Yes,
same
indeed.
spirit.
And if you didn't fulfill your academic responsibilities, no matter how good you were, or if you didn't complete those chapel credits, no matter
Those
how good you were, no matter how good you were, you were going to be benched, or you had to wait till the next season in order to play again. No matter how good you were, and I think that was a great testament to the HBCUs or at the time. And like I said, when I was there in the '70s, there was no girls team, and they just
right
started. I think my sophomore or junior year, they started,
in
putting together,
'77,
and it was tricky time, putting
in
together the
in
girls team, which
in
eliminated
1977.
the freshman team, but they had to have something before the girls team came on board, and it just went on from there. Like you said, his vision evidently paid off in the long run. So you had that experience there, and before we leave Union, how did you envision yourself being the homecoming queen, or did someone encourage you, say, "Yeah, you ought to," because you have to agree to run for that, you know, uh,
Yeah,
either on your own initiative or someone, sort of encourages you to do that. Which way was it? Was it something that you seeked out on your own, or somebody, your roommate, or somebody said, "Girl, you need to do that," after you said, "I don't have time for that. Go ahead."
well, I just want to go back and give, kudos and much pride to the professors and the instructors that I had at Virginia Union, because that was also the difference. We had those professors that cared about us, right? They wanted us to
Right.
succeed. They wanted us to be successful. And shout out to the great Dr. Ruth B. Cole Harris, the first
Mhm.
Black female to get her CPA in the state of Virginia. And I will always pay homage to her. And so moving forward, I do want to say that I also was on the homecoming court at my high school. It was just
Okay.
something about me. I've always loved, what I call that beauty. That's a part of me. Just being able to be a woman and express myself, and because I did do a little modeling when I came out of high school, right before I went on to play basketball. That was another path that I thought I was going to take, but
And,
basketball,
and,
sports
and you
kind of
know, and
dominated.
I hate to cut across you, but a lot of times they didn't put women athletes in that same category of competing
No,
in a beauty contest or a contest such as Queen or even modeling, but a
Or
lot of
even
the
mom.
girls did. Look at Lisa Leslie, that was
Yep,
the staple, and
she
that was
was.
something that model agencies look for, the tall, that can
Yep.
wear anything.
Yep.
So, but a lot of times they didn't, they didn't look at women athletes that way, and they were, you all were women, you just happened to be athletes as well.
Oh yeah, I definitely own that. Yeah, when basketball was over, I put my little lip gloss on, I put my little outfit on. I was keeping it moving because I didn't want to fulfill those stereotypes that were starting to, evolve. But I will say, when I arrived at Virginia Union during those times, they assigned you a senior leader, right? So I was fortunate to be assigned to Corliss Bailey. She was Miss Virginia Union my freshman year. And so I always admired her characteristics. I could identify with how she gracefully walked the campus, how she had very good confidence in herself. And so then my sophomore year, I actually decided to run, and I was Miss Sophomore, right? And I was fortunate to be escorted by my homeboy Charles Oakley. So I just want to kind of throw that
Oh
out there.
wow,
You have to have your little
yeah,
escort
yeah.
doing the
Drop that name.
doing
Yes.
doing the coordination. Yeah, and then my junior year, I became the campaign manager for my dorm director, Matola Waller. And then she went on, I ran her campaign. So then my senior year, what happens is that the sororities basically go around and they choose, one or two of the sorors to run for positions on the campus, because we had to take on leadership roles, right, on the campus.
Right.
So between my line sister, Carolyn Richardson, and I, we agreed that she would run for uh, the chapter's president of Delta Sigma Theta at that time, Beta Epsilon. And she's like, well, you got the personality. Everybody knows you. You out there with it. You go ahead and run for Miss Virginia Union. And so because I had that, nurturing by Corliss Bailey, and then running the campaign for Matoka Waller. And then I was like a shoe in, right? I like, no, I can do this. I can make this happen. I could be Miss Virginia Union. Because honestly, I felt like I was, and all the things that I was doing, helping out students on the campus, being involved in a lot of clubs. And, unanimously, they voted me Miss Virginia Union. And I wore it well, in
Yes,
addition to all that I was doing.
and that kind of involvement on when you're in college or at a university, it also serves you well once you graduate and go out there into the world, because the world is full of you have to learn how to do many things at once. You can't be one dimensional out there in the world and expect to succeed. So it's like a training ground for prepare you for that type of life that you might face out there being involved. That's why I encourage anybody going to college now, get involved in as much as
That's
you
right.
can,
That's
as
right.
long as it
Because
doesn't
you know
interfere
what?
with your academic studies.
Right.
Just be
Because
involved.
you're not gonna walk that way again. So you got to make
Yes,
it count. Like I tell a lot of
indeed.
the young people when I would go out and recruit them and they're winding out their senior year, I would say make this the best year of your life, because you will
Right,
not come
right.
back to high school. And it's the same thing
Yeah,
with college. I'm telling you, the camaraderie at Virginia Union when I was there, the family. Because think about it, Slim. Majority of us, we stayed on campus, or some of them stayed in the housings right behind the campus. So we didn't
yes,
have the dormitories, we didn't have the apartment buildings. Once a lot of people living off campus, so that cohesiveness, right? That ability to support and be with each other. I tell you, it's nothing like that. And we were safe within our own environment, right? We were there supporting and encouraging and loving on one another. So that's the difference that I see, with the students, branching out, which is okay. I mean, it's a different day, it's a different time. I get it, but just to be on campus and having to be around each other almost 24/7, you really got a chance to bond with those individuals during that time.
yeah. Excuse me, lifetime bonds. And I have friends now that I met that are all over the United States, California and Texas and places like that. that we still have a relationship where we talk, at least talk, and maybe come together during homecoming or at other times. So I wanted to show you talked about being a homecoming queen. I wanted to show this book. You're a part of this book, The Legacy of the Crown, a book that's giving you talking about all the queens, the queens that have been a part of the Virginia Union courts over the years, and you are part of that. So I wanted to show people that and
Yeah, make sure y'all get your copies. Get those
make
copies
sure you
there.
get a copy of this too. You know, very interesting read, and even I mean, it's very inspirational for young people coming up now to read this story, and a lot of people probably fall under some of the experiences you had. And you tell them how you navigated through it, and it's very good read, very interesting read, and people will get to know who you are. From the young girl, volleyball, track star, to basketball, to scholar. And so I encourage people to still get that book. Let's get into the pros now. Now, I guess um, you also you're the vice president of operations of the WABL, which
No
did it
longer.
come before the WNBA or after that, or in conjunction with that?
Well, what happened was when I left Virginia Union in 2015 and took a year off 2016, um, I was looking to move down to Florida because I was working with my second husband, and he was down in Florida. So I thought, hey, maybe I'll go down to Jacksonville, Florida. And in the meantime, it was so ironic that I got a call from a man down there that was looking to start a women's pro basketball team, the WABL, and he said, well, you know, based on your credentials and your background, I would love for you to help me run this organization. So I took on that role, and I think maybe like less than 6 months into it, it folded because he couldn't get the finances for it. So I held
Mhm.
that role, a very short time. And in the meantime, again, it's amazing how basketball has just continuously knocked on my door. So I got approached by the Women's American Basketball. Wait a minute, there's so many leagues, but the last one, and the WPBL. Yes, that's what it was, the WPBL. And they asked me if I wanted to bring a team in, and I said, yeah, I would. And this was in 2017, 2018. And I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and start my team. Flew me out to St. Louis. It was a great business model. I was so excited about us getting started. And then guess what happens? COVID. So
Oh,
COVID comes in and kind of shuts that down. And then I get a couple of my friends who had their own teams in that league decided to join the Women's American Basketball Association. And that was in 2020. Yeah, in 2020. So back up for the WNBA. First, it was the ABL. Do you remember they had a team in Richmond called the Richmond Rage? And that's where Don Staley played, Beth Cunningham, Adrian Goodson. I don't know if you remember, but there was a league that was in 1995. So I'm going to back up. So my league started later. So there were leagues in place right before our leagues got started. So then the WNBA came in right around 1996 when they took over the ABL. Now, a little fun fact, I did make the practice squad of the ABL with Don Staley because they moved the team from Richmond to Philadelphia. So I played a half a year with the Philadelphia Rage with Don Staley, and then the WNBA took over right that next year, and I tried out for a couple of teams, and so again, basketball has just, if I always say this, but I really mean this. If there's such a thing as a basketball god, I've been duped, right? Because basketball has just been an integral part of my life. And I want to say this to the listeners is that I've used it as my ministry, though, to be able to mentor, right? To be able to work with young women either if they're in basketball or not, but just being an inspiration to women to let them know that everything, all of us have greatness within us, and it's solely up to us to find it. So basketball has been that vehicle that has allowed me to do that. And so today, with women's basketball evolving and flourishing, it's great time. It's a great time for women's basketball. And so with me starting with the WABA, the Women's American Basketball Association, this will be my fifth season. And I'm excited about what we've been able to do to add value to our women as well as add value to our communities. Because we do a lot of mentorship, we do free basketball camps and clinic, and we get out and we speak to the young people in our community.
Yeah, I think that's very, and I talked to you about this. I saw a video about with your team working with young girls, your young girls, and teaching them the basic fundamentals before
Yes,
they watch and try to get flashy and do things that the pros are doing. You have to learn those basic fundamentals. Even something I've never seen this practice before, but the thing where they just hold the ball and you know just get and bounce
slap
it
it,
back and forth in
the
your
ball,
hand to
slap
get
it.
used
Yep.
and, and getting used to the ball, so you and the ball become one. And what a great exercise that is, especially for a young basketball player to get to know. The worst thing I saw one time, they had some little guys and they had the little nets and they were going you know, uh, slam dunking on it, and the crowd was going wild. But these guys couldn't even dribble. So I said, well, that's fine to watch them slam dunk, but that's not something you want to teach them starting out, and they don't even know how to dribble. But you're cheering them on for slam dunking because it looks good and it's showtime. But those basics, if you have the skills, they're going to come. But you have to have those basics. You have to have that Allen Iverson type skill to be able to cross over and break people's ankles. So, and that all
Oh,
starts early in life.
yes,
I,
it
I
does.
want to take you. I want to take you back 1 minute to what was your degree in?
Accounting.
Accounting. So, I wanted to know that because it came into play later on. As far as accounting and marketing with you, you taught or still teach marketing. Um, And so that helped you as far as becoming an entrepreneur, because you're actually the CEO. You actually own the team, the Richmond Road Brothers.
Yes. Owner,
Okay,
founder, and owner. Yes.
founder and owner. So that took a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit to even do that. To find the funds and then find the players and be out there and put this schedule up there. And I saw you on another show and you're talking about the amazing season you all are having this year. You talk a little bit about your team and what they're doing this year.
Well, as you mentioned, I feel like my life has come full circle, right? With my and noted accounting degree, but also 21 years in financial services. And
Hmm.
so I'm no stranger to being an entrepreneur, building my own business. I believe it's something that I always wanted to do was to have my own business. I definitely believed in that. And so in building this organization with my, my experience, with my expertise, with the knowledge that I was acquired, it allowed me to set the foundation for this business or for this team, this organization. And so, yes, this year I'm excited with what we're doing. We are currently 7-2. That's where we are right now. We had a back-to-back game, two back-to-back games this past weekend, and so we have one more game left in our season, and that's this Sunday. We play away at a new Virginia team, Virginia Vitas. We go and travel this Sunday, and right now we've already secured a place in the playoffs. So we will be hosting the first round of the playoffs, and that date is to be determined. We're looking at the first weekend in September. We will make sure we get the information out to our fans, whether or not it's going to be that Saturday or that Sunday. But we're
Hmm.
excited. We've got some phenomenal players on our team. Matter of fact, I have three young ladies on the team for Virginia Union. Um,
Great.
and Ashley Freeman is a young lady that I recruited and coached at Virginia Union, and she was fortunate to break my scoring record. So how about that? I've got a young lady
Oh,
that I coached
and you
originally
still
in
let her on
Union
your team. Wow.
and broke my scoring record. And I come back to Richmond, when I formed the team, and there she is. So she's been with me since the inception. And then, of course, my daughter, I mentioned Vicky Collier. She came to play with me from Old Dominion, and she, did some great things at Union, being also a double A. And then we have Jaslyn Dinkins. She didn't play for me, but she did play at Union under Ann Gilbert. And I'm
Mm,
so excited. And then I recently picked up Jasmine Dancy. I coached her at Virginia Union, a power forward out of Laurel, Maryland. And then the list goes on. I've got two VCU players, Jenna Nelson and um, Andrea Barber, a phenomenal young lady that hit a game-winning shot for us the other night. And then I've got Kiara Gaines that with the Campbell, she just got her jersey. She just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And then, I'm just excited. And then Mo Kennard, that's just putting up double doubles. We're just really excited about what we're doing as a team. And then Tamara Moore, little quick, little fast guard that we have. And I'm just excited with all the young ladies that we basically have. And these young ladies have bought into it. So I definitely encourage you all to listen out for our playoff game. We need you in the stands. It's either September the 6th or the 7th. And I know we're going to do great things. I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt.
yes, indeed. And we really wish you all the luck. And here in Hampton Roads, we'll be following you in the playoffs and hope you go as far as your team will take you.
Yeah, and I just also want to
To
give a shout out. My other player is Kayla Green,
yes,
phenomenal
indeed.
young lady out of North Carolina A&T. So that wraps up my group.
Yeah. And we talked about all of this and how fortunate is Hermitage High School in order to get someone like you with all the experience you have, all the uh, academic knowledge that you have that you can pass on to an even younger group of young ladies as being the coach at Hermitage High School. How did you get there, and what made you accept something like that? Because what I see that as probably an opportunity for you too to really give back and give some of your knowledge, even with the financial part. It's never too early to teach these young ladies how to manage their finances. Once you get that into their head early, you know, uh, because so often we get out there and think we have time. I'm going to save all, I'm going to use all my check. I'm not going to put aside any right now. I got time for that. Next thing you know, you're 50 years old and you haven't saved anything. So,
Correct.
so what made you accept that? I don't want to call it a challenge. I think it's an opportunity as far as being able to guide these young ladies and coach them in many ways other than basketball.
That's an excellent question because what's interesting is that Henrico had become our home gym for my women's pro basketball team. But then they started undergoing some renovations at the gym. And then I was introduced to Hermitage and met the new incoming AD, Coach K. And so we started to play a couple games over at Hermitage last year, or that fall before that spring before the school year started. And it was interesting because I was like, how did this come full circle? Because I was just, playing my games here. Now this opportunity is presenting itself. And when I saw the announcement, I was like, maybe I should consider this. Maybe it's an opportunity for me to step back and really mentor these young girls, as you said, giving back, sharing my knowledge and my wisdom to helping them, to be able to navigate life. And I looked at the announcement. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I need to move on and do some other things. But that little still voice inside of me says, no, it's time for you to give back a little bit more. Just take a step back for now, maybe a couple, 2, 3 years, and help build this organization, build this program. And so I found that there's an opportunity to start with the younger minds, right? To be able to pour those positive seeds into their minds, to plant those seeds, to motivate them, to inspire them, to encourage them. And so, because it was right here in my backyard, I said, hey, I have a lot to gain and I have to lose by being able to pour into these young people. And again, things came full circle. Now I'm back in Hermitage, not only playing professional games, but now coaching the girls basketball team. And last year was a challenge because I didn't have a lot of players. We were rebuilding, but I want to say I've been known to win with less. And so with the 6 players that I had, we won 2 of our games. And one game we won it in big fashion, and people just couldn't believe it. But when you get young people to believe in themselves, to have faith in themselves, to really know that they can do things, great, exceedingly above what they think they can, they're unstoppable. And that's ultimately my goal in everything that I do and everybody that I come across. I want everybody to be successful.
Yes, indeed. That definitely was a challenge to have 6 players and just one person on the bench. But as you grow, I wish you all well with that because I think those ladies or young girls that play for you would definitely benefit from your experience and what you will have to pass on to them. So hopefully you'll get more players
Oh, I
this
will.
year. And because I know we saw that down here as well. We saw a JV team that had 5 players. They had no bench, and they won several games just with those 5 girls, and it caused other girls to come out, and because
See?
they saw
Yes.
that and said, "Wow, I want to be a part of that." Look at these, just 5 of them, and they're beating teams that have a full complement. They have a 5 and a bench. So I know that probably was encouraging to for people to see and will make girls come out to play for you. And before we go, I want to, you see, I said the Norcom, and I'm gonna have to get you in touch with the AD at Norcom because we talked about it before when you before. Hopefully, we can set up some kind of exhibition game, with the road runners down here. Uh, however, would work out at the Norcom gym. It's named after Kellogg, a great player that came out of IC Norcom and played in New York and resisted the gambling. That's what he became famous for when he played in this college. There was a lot of gambling going on, a lot of players taking the money to throw games, and he resisted
Right.
and almost, it could have cost him his life because these were gangsters. But
Wow.
anyway, the gym is named after him, and hopefully we can do something like that and introduce, your team and the league to the Hampton Roads area, with an
Okay.
exhibition where both your team and Norcom can benefit. Hopefully, something like that in the next few years can work out. But
Sounds
I'll have to
good
get
to
you in touch with the AD there. He's very creative and receptive to new things. So hopefully that can.
me. Sounds
But
great.
anyway, I want to thank you again for coming on and appreciate you being patient enough and with the mixed up in the times that we had. And
Yes.
I want to appreciate everybody that's listening. So I want to give you the last words, like you would be talking to a new team. Don't give away all your what you would say to your team. But you're talking to young girls and young men. What would be your first conversation with them or uh, about basketball and life in general?
Well, first and foremost, we got to get the mindset ready, right? That's that when you talked about those 5 young ladies out there beating teams with a whole, against their opponents with a full bench. It's a mindset. So what I
Yeah.
would encourage everybody to do is first and foremost, get your minds right, right? You got to make sure that you understand what you bring to this world. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a reason for being. Even at the age of 8, 9, 10, or 11, you can step back and find out what it is that you want to do. And whatever you do, you got to do it at 110%. You got to do it with passion. You got to be committed to the process, right? And also, you got to be coachable. I tell a lot of people again, coachable in all aspects of your lives. When they use that word coachable, that's very generic. That goes across sports, your academics, your profession. So you got to be coaching and you got to have an open mind to be the best that you can. You can't go in there thinking that you know everything because we don't. Just when we think we know everything, we know nothing. And so I would encourage those individuals to make sure they got the right mindset. You got to be coachable, right? And you got to be open to getting better, and knowing that every day that we wake up is an opportunity for us to do it greater and do it better. And I would say, don't let anyone tell you what you can and cannot do. Continue to believe in your dreams and continue to believe in you.
Well, thank you, Coach Barvenia Wooten, a Virginia Union Panther legend. And thanks for being here on the Mary Red Nelson Panther Nation Alumni Show. It's
Thank you.
special. Everybody that I talk to, either if they are a union alum, they come on here first, and then we stream it to other platforms. But thanks for being a part of this alumni YouTube channel, and hopefully we can have you back for updates and talk about whatever else you want to talk about. It doesn't always have to be about basketball. It could be about
Right.
the financial things and creating that generational wealth that we in our communities need to do more of, and just how to handle your finances and start
Yes.
early in life. So you don't have to work. We living longer. That doesn't mean we have to work longer. So anyway, but I
No.
appreciate you. I appreciate you, and
Thank
thanks
you. I
again.
appreciate you, Slim. Yes.
Always,
Thank you for
always,
having me. The honor.
and again, good luck for your season, and we'll be watching. And anything we can do from down here, anytime you want to come on, you have something to say, just let me know. It's going to always be
Okay.
open for you to come on and share whatever you want to share. I appreciate it. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you
Go
too.
be great.
Now, okay. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next time. Then we have to keep that smile on our face while we wait. I think we go.